It's the Market Sniper. How are you? Yep, it's the evening of Monday night. And wow, this vampire takes some killing. Gaza, the TikTok economist, is back. And now Labour wants to be on his show, he says. And he's now playing gatekeeper. Should he allow them? He's not sure if he should be political. You sound like a Labour kid, Gaza, with the pro-Marxist taxation. Go ahead and have your mates on. Just like branded after saying there's no point in voting and all the other sellouts. Listen, we really need to drive a stake in the heart of the economic arguments that are coming out here. And I'm aiming to do this. What the hell? It's a quiet, relatively quiet trading day. Helping people understand why we are where we are is one of the most important things we can do. And unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation and misdirection. So let's take in the key aspects of Gaza, of TikTok's economics. And let's hear again what he has to say. Gary Stevenson: the only time in history we had a decent living conditions for ordinary people was when we taxed the very rich. And he doesn't mean taxed. He means took everything. Because that word's the income tax levels. It will shock you to know that, and I will show you these actually in table forms, that the income tax levels were 91%, 94% at the top levels. Of course they were, for the time, relatively high. And those two things are connected. So what he's saying is taxing the rich and decent living conditions. In other words, if you're not punishing your most productive people and taking disproportionately all of their income, the rest of the world doesn't get to live well. And his theory is kind of goes like this. Because if they get to be rich and successful, they buy everything and make it all too expensive for you. Somehow, Gary doesn't deal with, and he never says these words, actually. He will talk about the rich, the rich. For every time you hear the rich, he'll say it 100 times before you'll hear the word inflation or currency debasement, central banking cartel, along with the other banks, part of the cartel that are owners of the central banks. Don't forget Citibank, who he worked for, the old Chase Bank that became part of JP Morgan, are all shareholders in the central banking and running this shell game. That has brought us to this point. He never mentions them. He never mentions inflation, currency debasement as the real reasons why. Let's go into a couple of our drill down points that we've made. You can hear it from him. Let's hear it again.
The last 70 years are not normal, Stephen. The last 70 years are not normal. The last 70 years in Europe and the US, where ordinary people like my dad could work for the post office on less than average wage and buy a house and support a family, it's not normal. It's not normal in the world, and it's not normal in history. Most countries in the world are not like that. Most countries have a small super rich elite and a very large group of extremely poor people. That's most of the country, and it's most of history in this country, and it's most of history in the US. You know,
nothing overly controversial in that opening gambit. You know, we went from a feudal system where there were monarchs and overlords that had power and army that suppressed everybody else. Okay, that's dominance, that's totalitarianism, that's medieval monarchy. Okay, all right. So he starts you always from a basis that's pretty acceptable, but that's when the tweak suddenly comes.
Yeah, we talk about Charles Dickens. I read Hard Times, and this is written in the 19th century when Britain was like the industrial superpower of the whole world. And at the time, the government was talking about, should we tax these industrialists? And the industrialists were saying, if you tax us, we'll throw our factories into the sea. And it just reminds me,
So that's like an anecdote to help you hate the rich. I very much doubt that's how the conversation went. Quite possibly it was, we'll rebuild these factories in some other place across the sea if you make it too punitive for our activities. Hey, that's not to say the mega industrialists of Carnegie, Rockefeller are my friends and we're doing cool labor law, not putting kids to work in the coal mines and etc. Hey, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that those people are friends. The legacy families are the super legacy. You see, he means the super rich, not the actual trillionaire Rockefeller banking cartel runners and owners rich. He kind of means the guy's a little bit below that. A little bit below that, you see. He doesn't want to say Rothschild. He'll never hear him say Rothschild. Isn't it funny? Gaza's never heard the name or doesn't want to share it. He'll never say Rockefeller. He'll never talk of the oil monopoly that was Standard Oil. He doesn't want to go there. He wants this tag, rich, super rich, super rich. So that's somewhere beneath the people that own, run and fund Gary through all their quangos and open democracy little, clubs that he's part of. But he wants to get the guys that are, worth 20 million, 10 million, 50 million, even 100 million, a few billionaires. He doesn't like Elon, little does he know that Elon's a front man for the people that he's funding. But anyway, so that story, sorry, Gaza, the way you recounted that story, that sounds like Tattletales with a little bit of a pub.
The only time we've ever really been able to provide decent living conditions for ordinary working people was the period after the war where we massively redistributed wealth. And now we're losing.
So here's the key statement. Because everything else is fluff and bump and narrative and a little bit of history about a once feudal system that applied to everybody. Tribal lands in Africa to monarchs in England and Normans and everything else. It's all over the place there. So I want you to hear this bit again. And I want to make sure it's
people was the period after the war where we massively redistributed wealth. And now we're losing that holding of wealth.
So the reason his dad on a below average salary had the living it was what? Because they took lots of money away from the rich. So he makes it sound redistributing. But it wasn't redistributing, Gaza. Though it wasn't. Your dad didn't get near as many benefits back then in the 40s as he gets probably today on the NHS and all of those things. Those things were just starting in the 40s. They were just coming around. Where was all the migrant support and all those other costs that the government are spending your money on? No, it wasn't happening. The redistribution, the wealth, there weren't many people that met that criteria. Let's have a look what those criteria were, by the way, just so that you can take a gander at this, just to fully understand. So here are the US, because some people say the US was the same. Because they had the same marginal rates, let's cover that point while we're at it. Here were the ridiculous marginal top-end rates of tax. In the UK, if you earned in the 40s, this is the decade, the 1940s, and if that was your lot, you paid 99.25%. You got to keep 0.75% at the top end of the rate of the tax. It's a marginal tax rate. It's not your effective tax rate. This is what the people that are trying to clown me out and say, well, the US was the same. The US was 94, which is similar, but the amount was significantly higher, and would have had, as a percentage of the population, also a lot less. Then in the 50s, you had 91. So they were similar because the UK was 88.78. It's kind of 89. So those two light blues ones were similar. But the key point is that kicked in at 400,000. This had dropped to £15,000. £15,000. I'll show you the effective tax rates and why I highlighted that Gaza's tax extravaganza. Actually, the country that had the lower tax grew more and became the superpower. Now, there's other reasons why that would have been. Of course, the post-war, the Marshall Plan was being paid off by the UK, that the Americans had loaned, all sorts of things. But these people all want to reduce everything to a simple one reason. Because marginal rates were higher, my dad got to own a house as a postman on a below average salary. And working class people therefore need the redistributive force of that. Now, I can tell you there wouldn't have been a great deal harvested at these tax rates. In fact, I'd have turned to my employer and said, you know what, buy me a car this year. Don't pay me. I'm not seeing it. I mean, why would you ask for a tax increase? If someone gives you £100 extra in tax and the government takes £99.25, He'll give you 75 cents. You just say, take £1 and go buy me something from the shop. It'll cost you a bunch less and it'll cost me a bunch less. What do you think actually happened under all of this? And how many people officially paid were all paid in salaries? Corporations still existed. Dividends still existed. Income tax. The super rich is the super working for a salary rich with maybe a bonus. Maybe it would catch some of our bankers. Woohoo! Who knows? But it's not going to catch your owner-operators of corporations that take dividends, that can go anywhere else with their company and have holding companies that own their company and have transfer costs where they put the bulk of their profits through in some place where the tax is much, much lower. You can't. And this is the thing our friend Gaza does. He conflates income taxes with asset-based taxes all the time. And he got caught out by Daniel Priestley on that horrendously. And he kept conflating them and then saying he knew what they meant and then pivoting the whole time. This guy's telling you he's a brilliant economist and he doesn't fully understand transfer pricing as a tool for people who own corporations that can have a company anywhere and operate in your country through a subsidiary that breaks even. And your corporate tax can be low or zero, and that's exactly what Google's doing. It's exactly what Microsoft's doing. It's exactly what Apple are doing. It's all happening. So the minute you go for assets, it's a lose. You might get it once, they leave, they restructure, you never get it again, and guess what? They're no longer homed in your country anymore. You get one slap and you're gone. That's if you catch them. You typically have to announce your taxation intents and they'll move before you even get to make that money. So taxing assets, I'm afraid, doesn't work on rich people. Rich people are not people that are doctors, dentists, even great lawyers, great surgeons even. They get to be kind of rich, but that's middle class, upper middle class rich. It's not centimillionaire, billionaire rich. If you're trying to catch those people, they are almost uncatchable because there is arbitrage globally. Go where you're treated best. There are lots of small countries which will happily have a billionaire spending their money and get some consumption taxes out of him for a 3%, a 5% income tax, or once-off asset tax, or a property tax that he pays when he buys lots of property and pays big taxes on those things. You can't tax people's assets. You can get away with it maybe once. You can pass a wealth tax on properties, on valuation. That's what the council tax bands are. Re-rate the council tax bands. They're all supposedly a lot lower than your house is worth. Re-rate them to what the house is worth. Push them up, what it might sell for, etc. Get more aggressive there. Take more council tax from people to fund the municipalities. Okay. But if you're going to put a government tax on top of that, then you're going to have two taxes on the same item. And how do you do that? So this whole notion of assets as the easy win. What do you do with Richard Branson? He's a UK billionaire. He doesn't live there. He's got Necker Island. He's got everything. Philip Green had all his assets. The thief that stole everything out of the pensions pots of BH. He took billions in dividends through his wife to Monte Carlo, bloody down South France, in his wife's name, and then when it went bust, there was nothing left to pay out the pot of the pension for the staff that he'd used and abused. He was a rug puller. He's a criminal. He's a typical standard bear criminal that got away with doing that. Don't get me wrong. I'd love for Gaza to get someone like Philip Green and actually hammer him with a 99.25% tax. It's just not going to happen. It just isn't going to happen because we have a global system, we have travel, we have financial services, we have offshore financial services. You can decide anywhere you like where you want to incorporate. And in fact, I encourage all of you watching this to do exactly that. Pay less tax. It's my fourth point I didn't give you in my top secrets to winning and becoming wealthy. I'm going to give you 3 secrets in this video that are going to make you wealthy if you follow them. I'm going to do that in this video. I will show you not far out from now, and you will become wealthy. Hit the like button right now if you appreciate it. 3 mega secrets. And when you see them, you'll know them to be true. And I'm going to give you number 4, the bonus. I just gave it to you. Pay less tax to the extraction mechanism and system that are absolutely ripping you off, that are preparing to start a war against Russia and do all of these things. Listen less to Gaza. The extractors, the tax extractors are coming for your hard-earned. You buy gold. You do all the right things for building your wealth and stop feeding these beast machines that supposedly are the cure. You see, when Gaza says, Gary's Economics, that's Gaza, by the way, not the footballer. When our friend Gaza says, we want government to redistribute, who's he giving power to? You guessed it. Government. How's government done so far? Let's look at the track record. Who got us here? Government, central bankers, government, banking cartel. Who socialized the losses of the casino banking cartel that Gaza got to make a few million out of? Yes, a combination of government and the central bankers and the commercial bankers. They socialized all their losses in subprime on you for the dirty debt. They printed so much money, QE 1, 2, and 3, that they created inflation. That's caused your house price to go up in value that you can't afford it. That caused your cars to go up in value that you can't afford it. They need inflation because they deflate away the debt. They reduce the debt. They drag you up with your salary increases, even though they're behind the inflation rate, into new tax bands. So without even having to increase taxes, you keep being dragged into higher levels, like the 99.25% in the UK in the 40s. Oh my God. Yep. So they drag you into that. They kill the debt. And you end up paying more tax because you're an income guy. You're working for a salary. Stop being that income guy. Become the dividend guy. Become the offshore corporation owner guy. That's what they all do to you. There's the rules to the game. I'm going to be covering the 3 rules to the game, and I'm going to add a 4th. Okay, but let's look. We've done looking at this table. You can see initially they were quite similar in the light blue over here. But the levels were a whole bunch different. Then America started to drop. That's 18.75% better and at a much higher level. That's 98%. That is 28% better and at a much higher level. This is 28%, the top tax rate. The top tax rate. And this was 40. Can you see that? And recognize that if I say we take $100,000 person, the kind of person Gaza would like to have taxed, and say, actually, the US did a whole bunch better. Anyone argue with that? Now, it wasn't only that. They had a bigger baby boomer, they had more population, they had much less debt, etc., that they'd accumulated through the war, etc., etc. They'd done way more building, they were a manufacturing nation, they had scale, everything. There are a lot of reasons. I don't say this is proof low taxes work. It's one point of data in this. But I can certainly tell you it wasn't the high taxes that made Gaza's old man have a flipping house after years of working for the post office. That's the effective tax rate on someone with 100 grand and a wife. The wives didn't work in the 40s. 100 grand, by the way, is the equivalent to 8.65 million a year income today. If you take gold, that was $35 then and $3,030 here. And in fact, soon to become 100x if we make $3,500. Might not be too far off, so it'll go up to 10 million, but let's keep it orderly. If gold is, and many people say it's been kept down, it's not been allowed to run as much as it, there's been more debt and proliferation than the gold price has been allowed to show. So it should be at least fair. 86.5, 8.65 million per annum. That is over a 10-year period. You're talking about someone who's made $86 million. By the way, if he had any skill in investing in assets, he should be worth well over 100 million after 2 decades. Well over any skill. And being someone who's earning that much, he probably has some skills, okay? Despite paying tax, living costs, and living the life of Riley. So the difference in tax is 47.76% in a high tax period in the UK. So he would pay tax of 47,000, he would keep 53 grand or 52,250, more than half, in what was known as the high tax post-war periods of the 40s. What did you keep in the UK? $13,000. So we've converted both to dollars and we've applied the tax rate. 13,000 versus 52,000. Don't tell me they're the same. So just to kill that one off, because I've also highlighted that the US did better than the UK and the taxes were significantly different, even though the marginal taxes were the same. They were 3 or 4 times higher that the bands applied that. And that is huge because the effective tax charged gets a lot lower. You have much more at much lower rates. Before you can just have $1 or $2 at the ridiculous percent. It doesn't matter. So here he goes and he conflates high government distribution, which I question if it fully happened in truth, high government distribution, redistribution from rich to poor. We were about to go into the roaring 80s, so the 40s and 50s set up the 60s and 70s. UK was the sick man of Europe. You had the 3-day week, you had Labour going absolutely crazy in there. They'd spoilt and laboured everything up. You literally had a 3-day week. People weren't showing up on Mondays and Fridays. You had bodies unburied. That's right. At morgues and burial sites. You had trash uncollected. People don't realise how wrecked the UK was during that period. And this is Gazza's model of brilliance, and it was because of Labour and high tax. And he wonders why Labour wants to come on his show with a guy like Ed Miliband, his dad, a hardened Marxist Bolshevik, came via Poland. You know the type. That's right. Yeah, surprising surprise. This is someone we can work with. He's doing our work for us. He's teaching the little plebeians that love him, because culture of envy must take from somebody else if I'm to get something. Everything's a zero-sum game. No, it isn't, Gaza. Actually, you will see in my rules of success, everyone here can move forward, and I will give you the rules to move forward. And just start doing the things we suggest. So that's Gaza. Let's hear it again.
Of the middle class.
Can you acknowledge, though, that that was a completely different time as it relates to being able to...
It was a different time, but, I could,
because of technology.
Nigeria today, Brazil.
He doesn't want to acknowledge the different time. Why? What's the point Steve Bartlett's making? The point is travel, leave, land somewhere else, different laws, arbitrage, run it, remote working, internet. You are where you say you are. The internet or VPN, the offshore company, the everything. It's all changed. It's all changed. Now, there was some of that for the super elite rich that had clever services, and they were the forerunners of this in the 40s and 50s. We know corporations. America's a corporation. Most country is a corporation. We know this has existed for a long, long time. It hasn't been mainstream available, though, to many of the traditional rich that Gary wants to target, which is the not too rich. Remember, Gaza doesn't want to touch the trillionaires. He doesn't even know their names. He can't even tell you. The people that own all the banking cartel. Imagine if we could take all that money, Gaza. Wow, you might even get me interested with my pitchfork and all. No, my friend, no. You're not an economist and you want to chat. You're trying to grab the big bit just under the big bosses, and it ain't going to work because they can move anywhere, because they got the tools of their big bosses that showed them how to do it. So that's why Steve brought up different time, different place, and also there wasn't that much or that many people who would have been affected by it, and I imagine the amount of income that went above was rarely significantly above that.
Today, the UK 300 years ago, France 200 years ago, there is only one specific time that we have ever successfully provided broad living standards for ordinary people, and it was a period of time where we protected a broadly equal wealth distribution and taxed the rich.
So there is no broadly equal wealth distribution. There is a tax that the government takes, and there's people that do value-add services and get paid. So we're going to come back to where our Gazza's getting confused. It's called the Gini curve, and it used to be a lot straighter. It used to be an even distribution of the wealth. What percentage of the people had what amount of the wealth? The closer you got to 100, you had 100% of the wealth. The closer you got to 0, you had 0% of the wealth. You got the bottom 10, you would have 10% of the wealth in an idealized world like our friend Gaza, where everyone is equal and equal of outcome. No, they're not. 20%, you would have a straight line up. What tends to happen is it warps. It bends really in. It's called the hollowing out of the Gini curve. And what's actually happened is it's got super hollowed. And Gary doesn't like that. Hey, I'm okay with the fact that you don't like it and why, but you've got to understand the reasons. It wasn't because a government was taxing at 91%. I'd love to know how much money they actually got on there. I think it would be very trivial because, as I've said, I'd tell my employer not to pay it. I'd rather they kept it than give 99.75% to someone else. What am I going to do? Give maybe £100 and keep 25 cents? It's pointless. It's completely pointless. It's absolutely obtuse and non-functional. And it wouldn't have been significant. And would have been there for bonus events, etc., only. And I don't think it would have been applied very often. I'd love to have numbers on how much was actually got in for the entire nation on those tax rates. So here's the key thing. The decline in living standards are based off the loss of buying power of money, not tax policy. Okay? So the fact that Gazza's sister, who writes rap lyrics, is not earning a living. What you gonna do now? How much value add did you boys get there? Wow, hit the like button. What is it? Is it because I is black? What? Booyakasha. Have I got a history? Have I got potential, guys? It's because the value add and it's not there, Gaza, sorry. But the reason why his sister can't get that house is because the money doesn't buy what it used to. It got debased. It's not tax policy that changed that. It's central banker, commercial banking cartel, and government. Government over-spends with intent, even to waste. Why? Because it creates inflation and gives them more power over you. Because you have to pay more, they tax more, they can decide when they want to give you a cut because essentially you always bracket creeping higher. That's why they introduce marginal tax rates so they can dragnet you all into higher rates. I mean, the 40% tax rate is supposed to be there for extremely wealthy people. Now in the UK, I think 6 out of 35 million taxpayers, over 6 million are paying the 40% tax rate. I mean, it's like 17, 20%. It used to be for the 1%. It was for the 1%, it's turned into 20%. That's called dragnet bracket creep, brought about by the destruction of money. And what's happened is people's salaries have gone up. They've dragged them into those higher bands, but in actual fact, they've gone up slower than the currency's being proliferated. Why? Okay, let's read a little more. Money has been debased by massive debt and fiat issuance by a cartel of central bankers. You never mention it, Gaza. Why? Don't you understand? You're a world-leading economist. Oh, it's brilliant. I'm a brilliant economist, he'll tell you. I'm a mathematical genius. A great poker player. Base level workers' salaries did not keep up. Why? In part through globalization and sleight of hand. Okay, so what did globalization do? Well, it ended up taking labor to the lowest common denominator, including slave labor, where other people didn't have the rights and laws that we had introduced in our first world countries. So you had little kids of 11 years old sewing your football, your Nike football in Bangladesh, instead of the person with a pension payment, a proper salary, a lunch hour, not allowed to be flogged by a man with a whip while he works, etc., etc. You know, work harder, stay longer. You've got to do 157 footballs, otherwise you can't go home. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. Slave labor. And what happened is the workers here got paid less in real terms. It started to break down, especially with mundane, initially manual tasks, but it spread into other things too. You could have management, you could have call centers, you could do everything offshore. Globalization took a cost-based approach, and it also made the billionaire class, the centimillionaire class that ran corporations, ever more rich. Because if you were a coffee chain like Schmuckbucks or Seattle Coffee, you didn't just win in Seattle, you won in all the states in America. And then you didn't just win in all the states in America, you started winning in other countries. And then you did transfer pricing, the thing that Gary thinks he understands but doesn't really understand, where you do a double Dutch Amsterdam stroke Irish deal where you end up paying 0.something%. Because that company holds the license that rents the company out to that one, and you always just make a loss in the country you're operating in, but the charge that you get charged for the licensing fee makes a massive profit here, but that gets a subsidy and it's cross-referenced. It's all skullduggery, it's chicanery and corporatocracy. It's a corporate fascism, and we've been talking about this for ages. In actual fact, the companies are the ones, particularly the megacorps. How many times has Gaza really put his sights on Google, Apple, and of course Microsoft, Amazon, AWS, YouTube, Android, all these brands that should have been broken up? Have you ever heard Gaza mention that? And how much money? Georgie Osborne, Cacocracy, goes to the Super Bowl and agrees a 0.01% payment on the British revenue as a tax payment, like £1 million, for which is an absolute nothing number that they get out of Google AdWords and all their stuff. This is going on all the time. It's corruption between politicians and the corporate classes. And why is it like that? Because those same political people own the shares in the corporations that they are ensuring get to make unbelievable earnings by not paying much tax, because they want to raise more debt to deflate and debase the existing debt and drag you into higher inflation and proliferation tax brackets and push the assets up into a bubble. The whole game is a bubble. It's a pump and then dump scheme. It's that simple. It's literally like a crypto pump and dump. You have to first buy it up. You have to first buy it up and make it hyper-valued. Melania token, Fartcoin, you name it, buy it up. It's literally as simple as that. Everything must be pushed up on the basis of huge liquidity. And the people that know the game can borrow. The debt gets crushed, the interest rates, they borrow cheap and buy assets at the beginning of the cycle. We're not at the beginning of the cycle. We're coming to the end of the cycle where the debt can bite and the interest rates can spike and throw you out. But that's why Robert Kiyosaki made so much money. He borrowed and borrowed and borrowed, and the more he borrowed, the more they allowed him to borrow, and he bought property and property and property. He got guys to manage it and rent it for him. And it was just a big yield farm, and he kept getting lower interest rates and buying them by the block, and asset prices. He's sold them all, and he's buying gold. That's my last understanding of his position. Why? Because the debt cycle could turn, and the property asset values are hypervalued. Everything is hypervalued because of the debasement of the currency. Debt and fiat issuance by the cartel of central bankers. And because of globalization, the level of workers' salaries actually didn't continue to go up. So you have assets going up faster than wages that kind of started to flatline right about 1971. I wonder what happened then. Anyway, check it out, maybe. 1971. The fiat full float system came to fall. Hallelujah. That was good for us, hey, Gaza. But you don't mention it. Why don't you mention it, Gary? It's a bit, a little bit of a hole in the theory, maybe. A hole in the theory. It hasn't been because you're not taking enough money from people on tax. Shit, we're raising debt at such a rapid rate. Debt is tax, Gaza. It's inflation. Every new dollar, pound borrowed into existence is a dilution of everybody else. You double the amount of currency and issue, you halve the buying power of the currency. Japan even said in 1 year, then 2 years' time, they hope to have doubled the amount of fiat in proliferation. That to catch up, the yen was too strong. That was when it was trading sub 100 to the dollar in the 70s. Well, boy, they sure did a good job of devaluing their currency too. The Japanese never had it so good. We're going to make sure their currency buys less. How do we do that? Debasement, increase of issuance. So, for 4 to 5 decades, the average person had been placed on the wrong side of a compound interest equation. Average job rates were getting flat and not really going up in real terms by very much. Why? Because people, if you got too expensive, they can move the jobs offshore. And assets continued to pump because there was a lot of liquidity. The whole game was borrow and buy assets. That was it. That's all Roberts did. Kiyosaki went big in property. He borrowed and he bought and he bought and he bought and he bought for the full cycle. Again, I stress, no longer the time. It's time to unwind because the whole world is busy unwinding. You need to unwind ahead of them. If you're having too many assets, your asset prices are going to go down in value in real terms and possibly even in nominal terms in the extremity of this crash. So it's a banker's trick. It's a banker's trick. 4 decades on the wrong side of a compound interest equation, you lost the buying power of your money. It doesn't buy you what it used to. I went to the UK. In the Midlands, you bought a cold pint of Guinness for 50 cents in Nottingham, and you'd pay around £1 in London. That was round about 98, 99. Today, I'd love to know. Comment below. I doubt you get much change on a tenner in London, central London, and you probably paid 5, 6 in Nottingham, as an example. Do tell me below. But that is the buying power of your money. You just knocked a zero off. If you bought something for 50 cents that you now have to pay £5 for, a Guinness extra cold, that's a zero off your money. If you used to buy for £1 that same drink and now it's a tenner, you've lost a zero off your money. A millionaire is no longer good enough. You need to be a deci-millionaire to be, 99's version of a millionaire. That's how bad it is. That's how bad it is. So they also socialized, as I've said, and privatized the gains and socialized the losses. Something Gary fails to mention. So we had a super surge in liquidity provision during QE 1, 2, 3, N, twist, and then CV19. A super surge of liquidity where those losses got so sad. We didn't get given the money. Only a little bit of furlough payments in lockdown. Some people got. Banks got them. Banks got them for losses. Banks got them for losses, but there's more currency around. So you just got the dilution without the thing. And you had a super spike dilution event, which meant when you came out of that, the asset prices had gone even higher. Because all that hot money was chasing into things, and certain things were getting ever more far away for you to buy. That's what really did it. It's not redistributive policies. They didn't dish out that much money. The only thing a post office guy got was a pretty fixed wage in a very benign environment where the inflation was not so high. There was a lot of stagflation, actually, a little bit high, I would say, during the 70s, stagflationary. 40s and 50s, it was austerity. People were poor. You had one coat. That's how it was. And you lived, and the house prices didn't go up. There wasn't any funny money chasing it around. Coming off the gold standard sure changed a bunch of things and going free floats, and then the big boom of Thatcher and the 80s. So that's part number 1 of what we say. It's completely false to draw we had super high marginal tax rates. I've already shown you they don't mean anything if they're super high up. The American paid less than half. The Brit paid 87% of his income during that period. That was only because nobody was getting ahead and everybody was poor. That's one way to make sure that it was things weren't getting away from you. Then the proliferation came, and we've had a financial liquidity event, which is part and parcel with Greenspan coming in and taking over. Tail end of Volcker for the 80s. Greenspan came in 87, but you'd already started to have the boom under Volcker after he killed inflation early in his term. Okay, what else have we got to say on this so that we can finish with this guy? So the only time in history had decent living, again, the same argument. This clip just keeps coming up. They are totally conflated. The other two things are just not connected. Inflation destroys is very pro-Marxism. So here's your 3 and I'm going to give you the bonus one for secret to becoming wealthy. The slow, steady, but unequivocally, you're getting there. And Gary's a doomer. Let's be fair. I thought I was gloomy about the macroeconomics, but generally I'm an optimistic guy. I remember the boom. As I say, I chased into the property market before when I could see everything was going to go up. It's understanding the rules of the game. You don't run the rules. You don't set the rules. The faster you can understand the rules, the better you get to play. We're all ants on a chessboard, running around on a chessboard, and you could have a big old queen plonked on top of you. That doesn't sound very nice at all. Yes, transgender, mine, please, in pink. Yes, please. No. Well, we're ants on the chessboard. You need to know where it's safe and where you can go behind a castle that's heading down the other end, or a queen or a pawn that's going to be turned into a queen when it makes the other side. Turned into a queen. Oh dear, it's getting really dodgy here. Chessboard analogy aside, ants on the board know where to position, know the rules of the game, and work and survive. Don't be sacrificed. Don't be thrown to the dogs. What do you need to do? Okay, let's answer that. This is part of getting around Gaz's doomer. There's no chance. I don't see how anybody does it. My sister works so hard. What? Writing lyrics on a napkin where she has a coffee. What is she doing? It's not value add, Gaza. No one wants to pay her. It's not value add. I'm sorry. Poets, lyricists, they don't get paid big money. 1 in 1,000 make it, and they probably have to bend over for somebody as well, in that process. I'm sorry. It's the way of the world. Whatever you've not learned about the casting couch and everything that goes on in Hollywood, music industry, you know who runs it. You know what kind of predator, pterodactyl face predator is sitting there. Okay, so why are you bemoaning your incredibly talented sister's lack of ability to get by? Why don't you give her some money of yours, the money you stole from us when your organization gave you profits but passed me the loss on your trading and your bank's trading? Why don't you give her some of that, Gaza? Make it an interest-free loan. Don't be an usury extractor. So consume less than you produce. It's simple. Live within your means. It's rule number 1 for becoming. The secret leak for becoming wealthy is you first got to generate a positive cash flow. That's it. That means if you're not earning a lot, live like a church mouse until you are. Find a way to boost your top line and keep your bottom line low. And you know what I do? I arbitrage. Over here, it's half the price to live well than it is in other places. So I come here a lot. I earn big currency and I spend shit currency. They're all shit, by the way, but I spend, there's degrees and relativity. You can get a lot more for $1 in a place that is 20 to the dollar, 18 to the dollar than you can in Norway or Sweden, where it's probably quite expensive. Consume less than you produce, keep your costs down, maximize your income. That gives you a positive net value creator, accumulator. You need to be a consistency. And it's not about knocking the ball out of the park in 1 month. You need to just consistently score singles. This is the cricket analogy. You can't always hit a 6 or a 4. Just consistently score a single. That's it. Something that goes. And I tell you, it's so important to start. There's a bullion vault link below. Click it. Buy yourself $10 on bullion vault of gold or silver. Do yourself that favor. Every month, be that tiny bit better off. You know what the psychological value of that is? It is millions times bigger than the value that you're putting, that $10. You suddenly think you've got a stake in the future now. And you're getting better with every passing day. A breath goes by, you're that tiny bit better. A month goes by, you're that tiny bit better. Weeks go by, you're better. 6 months go by, you're that little bit better. You're stacking. That accumulator. I use the word accumulate because actually it's small, but it's consistent, it's regular, and it's duration. Duration and compounding are your friends, not the scale and the size. It's the same with trading, by the way. The move makes you the money, not the sizing. Tight stop loss, expansive move. The move makes you the money. Don't be greedy. Accumulate lots of little regular dippings into the gold pot and skimming an ounce here, an ounce there, half an ounce, too expensive, an ounce of silver, half an ounce of silver. Keep on each time, everybody, little bit at a time. Take a picture, make yourself happy, make yourself love it. Invest as much as possible in assets that preserve their value. In this period, for free, I tell you, the precious metals will preserve their value, and they're going to readjust in such a big way. They're going to more than preserve their value. They're going to outperform in preserving value, because you're going to have a lot of hot money that's going to have to unwind out of shit paper assets that's suddenly going to need to find something that preserves value. And that market cap for the things that preserve value and are physical is going to spike next to the paper nonsense, quadrillions, derivatives, house prices that are, fluffy as all hell at the moment, etc., etc. So understand these things. Okay, invest as much as possible in assets that preserve their value. Point number 2. Okay, in a system that has become a fiat and debt debasement system in an ever accelerating manner. This is so important. You're getting to the crunch point where there's going to be a melt up in gold and a meltdown in debt and fiat. That's coming. That moment's coming. Truly, it's coming. And people that are expecting another melt up in the stock market, I don't think they're going to be right. I don't think they're going to be happy. Avoid unnecessary consumables, real assets or income producing assets. So property is an income producing asset, maybe not giving you the highest in rental yield. Check it out, have a look. It's a cruel game, guys. It's a cruel game. Those that don't understand the rules of the game, Gary, you don't understand the rules of the game, or you do and you're not saying. So you're either a liar or a fool. I don't know which one. But sorry, it sounds mean, sounds bastardy. I know, I'm being kind of mean. But you don't. You're not talking truth to people. You're not actually talking truth. You're creating the politics of envy that Labour love, and that's why they want to come and they want to have a chat with you about getting more of their guys in, and we need to take more money. And they're not going to be knocking on Mr. Rothschild's door in Buckinghamshire. No. He has trusts, foundations, corporations, spidery tentacles that span the entire world, multiplied all over. You wouldn't work out. It's an absolute maze in there, mate. They're not going for him. No, they're going for the lawyer, the dentist. Remember, serfdom. Everyone into serfdom, ruling class. Communism, Bolshevik communism is the end goal. The West is to have their communist Bolshevik moment. It's a cruel game. That's the plan. Those that don't understand the rules of the game will become poor. If you don't understand rule 1 and 2, and I'm going to give you a 4th rule, which is part of this, and it's pay less tax. Do all the things. Find a way to contract to your work and leave the country and contract remotely, even if you regularly come into the country. Find a way to restructure your affairs, because you are feeding a beast and a machine that has always overspent. It intends to always overspend until the credit card is pulled and they're forced, and then they're going to come and steal your money that they'd already been doing before, but now they're going to steal it by taking your stuff with unrealized capital gains and further taxes. In other words, they're going to fight themselves into a corner where they have no further options, where they have to rob you, daylight rob you. At the moment, they're doing sleight of hand rob you. They're getting to the point where it has to go daylight robbery, gun to head. You've got a nice house. I don't care if you've still got a mortgage on it. We need 20% of the value. This is the value. Pay us this one. We're coming back next year, depending on finances. What do? What do? You need to diversify. You need to not have all your eggs in one country's basket, and you need to pay less tax. So, double a dollar 20 times, and you end up with over $1 million. Double a dollar 20 times, but pay 30% tax at the end of each year. You end with 24,000 after 20 doubles with a 30% tax. That compounded 30% that they are skimming off you at the end of every year is stopping you from becoming the millionaire that you deserve to be, that they are stealing. And what do they do with that money? They are overspending both it and raising debt to devalue the currency so that you ever have to run on that treadmill, and you can eventually be a poor elderly person even though you've saved for your pension. That's how they do it. That's what they want. They want to control you. They want to control you past your productive years. They want to control you even more, that they can, extend and end the life period. Lots of that going on. Have you seen Trudeau and the voluntary life-ending services? It's getting a bit dark down there. So those that don't understand the game and the rules are going to go poor. Those that lack the discipline, the key word is discipline, but understand the rules, are also going to go poor. You can see it. You're hearing me tell you. I'm telling you as plain and simple as I goddamn can tell you. Live within your means. Produce more than you consume. Part of the same sentence. Maximize that variance. Scale it. Do anything you can. Invest in asset preserving goods. Just go gold and silver right now. Pretend nothing else exists. Okay? And pay less tax. That's your bonus one. And it's a cruel game. You stop doing any of these things, you're going to start slipping back. You lack the discipline, you're going to start slipping back. You fail to understand this, you are going to slip back and you're going to be poor. And with what they're planning for you, I'm telling you, you're going to be very poor. Then you apply, if you've done all those two things and the third one, which is pay less tax, you need patience and time to allow the effect of compounding to scale you up and grow until you are financially independent. Patience and time. I've been stacking gold and silver properly since subprime, 06, 07, even before I had, and I was accumulating. I was trading it when it was at $600. That's a long time ago. And I was accumulating it for what was happening. I've always had this view. It was underwater with its delivery costs, VAT, ups and downs. I've probably been underwater maybe even for decades. But this was such a truth that I never stopped. You just got to keep walking and say, I'm going to get to that horizon. The sun will rise. The night will end. And then the dawn starts to break. Then you have a long, beautiful, sunny period and you are stacked, heavy and loaded. And every percentage change means big for you. So the poor have a deficiency in one of all the three of the above. One or all. That sounds terrible. You said poor people have a deficiency. Well, you either don't care enough to find out the rules of the game. That's a deficiency of interest in being wealthy. So that means you're okay with just going with the flow and letting government decide for you. Okay, that's laziness. So that's your deficiency. A lack of self-interest maybe as well. Or you don't have the patience or the discipline. Or you don't see it as worth your while until suddenly your whole world comes crashing down and you wish you made different decisions later on. What's it going to be? Start now. Start now. Pay less tax. Invest in true, real, physical assets that will preserve your buying power and live within your means, generate a cash flow out of whatever income. Build up side hustles, start your hobby is not a business, but maybe you can make it pay. Have something that you earn, find something that you love that you do. Always have two jobs, one which is official job and one that's something you're working on that you're passionate about. That's what you got to do until you really do it if you're working in a works environment. Okay, so that's the secret to building wealth that Gaza won't tell you. He won't tell you any of these things because he wants you to change the system. He wants you to become Rent a Riot Squad, buy his book, sub to his channel, make him a star. He's bragging about how fast his channel is growing. It's growing very fast. And that politicians want to appear on his show. This is Russell Brand Mark II, where he pivoted Labour at the last moment. I mean, it really is. But this is the economic version where he makes a justifiable case. The Labour 40s is such an aspirational period, and 50s, the post-war era into the 70s. Wow, I mean, that's such an amazing period for Britain. The sick man of Europe. You've got to aspire to that. They gave the houses away at cost as part of the plan when Thatcher came in, and people bought and once off got on the property ladder. That gave people wealth. They gave them an asset that retains value. You see what they did there? They didn't mean to do that. They shouldn't have done it. Today they wouldn't do it, but they did. And then working class people actually got to be richer on account of their house value going up. And some of them thought, imagine I had 2 houses. Now that's entrepreneurship. That's the beginning of a thought. And some will say that's greed. And Gaza will say, you're crowding out everybody by buying a second house to do a buy-to-let. Well, you've got to do what's right to build your wealth. You've got to do, because he ain't saving you. He's telling you he doesn't know how. No one can do it. His poor sister is the example of in case. And if he hadn't got the job and been a millionaire, he'd have turned out like them, but for being a maths genius and a genius economist. And by the way, Gaza, predicting a debt-based crash and a major fallout is not an original nor a new prediction at all. You know, we've all been doing it for a long time, and people before you, me, and many others have been doing it for quite a while. You know, Jim Rogers, Mark Farber, you know, we've had them on our show. These guys have been around for a long, long time explaining this doesn't end well. You're not a genius economist for seeing that it's going to get bad for everybody. That's not economics, it's maths. That's maths. That's maths. You could have said you're a genius mathematician. It's an absolute mathematical fact that we can't work our way out of this. So that's where we go on that. And, you know, there isn't too much more that can be said. Oh, we've got a little snippet for you from yours truly, Mikey Saylor, and he wants to talk about gold. Let's hear what Mikey Saylor has to say.
Every other commodity is going to actually explode in supply with technology and with price. That makes them all garbage investments for...
Every commodity is going to explode in supply. Wow, that's amazing, Mikey. Can you just explode me a plantation of coffee Arabica bean trees, please? Oh, they only grow at certain heights. They've got to be not too far from sea level, but not too low. Oh, well, never mind, Mikey. It's easy, I'm sure. You just explode me a full plantation of coffee beans. Their price has gone up about 10 times. Technology does have a disinflationary effect. It's true, to a degree, but you get diminishing returns, you know. How efficiently can you paint a line in a road? There reaches a point where, you know, you've gone well past the human doing it, and you've got the super slick machine that's measuring it and throwing it down. You know, there's diminishing returns on certain things, Mikey. We've had technology in gold mining for ages, and you know what? We keep finding less. We keep finding less and less and less, and there's no big finds. You know that, Mikey? The things get a lot harder, often faster than the technology can get better. Occasionally you can get a quantum leap, but right now, finding gold, it just ain't that easy. I'm in a country that has 2 miles deep mines. They're not bringing up what they used to. They used to do 1,000 tons, their best year, 1,000 tons a year. Now they can't do much in close to even 200 tons a year. So let's hear what a garbage commodity investment everything is. Let's hear again.
Every other commodity is going to actually explode in supply with technology and with price. That makes them all garbage investments for a long-term investor. They're in fact the worst possible investments as a long-term store of value. The king of them, gold, still underperforms the S&P index by a factor of 2 or more. So there's only one commodity in the history of the human race that wasn't a garbage investment. The one commodity is Bitcoin.
The one commodity. So now you see how he keeps hammering home commodity. Everything else is a security. We're a commodity. We're a commodity. A commodity. That doesn't meet the definition of a commodity. Commodities you can touch, Mikey. Commodities are things that you can scale produce, Mikey, that have marginal returns because lots of people have used a lot of technology, and we've got to that point where you can just make normal profits, not super normal profits doing them, like farming, like this, like that, growing it. Those are commodities. They're often softs, they're often products, they're often minerals. Bitcoin is not really a commodity. They can tell me by definition, by decree, it is a commodity, but it isn't. You can keep saying the word commodity, it sounds very weird. Compare it to gold, Mikey. Gold has unique properties. It's physical. It cannot be printed. It cannot be hacked. It cannot have its code. I mean, it's a garbage investment. He just knows what he's doing. He's trying to get headlines. It's kind of like an outrage farm. I'm not too sure if it's an outrage farm or just complete stupidity, or whether he's pitching to an audience that he's hoping will go, whoa, yeah, gold is We pitch ourselves as gold. We digital gold. We're everything. Gold's garbage, garbage. It's a bit like dissing your wife and saying she's the ugliest thing, and you marry her. You know, it's kind of, it's like, it's the most bizarre dichotomy of we're totally like you. We can do all the things you can do, and you're garbage, you garbage, you garbage. It's unbelievable. Anyway, so you got Mikey Saylor there weighing in. So we got so many. There's so many actors that I think are insincere or controlled. And Saylor strikes me as one. And Gaza, who's now wanted by Labour for his Marxist tendencies, and he's taxed the rich, which is actually taxed the middle classes, because those tax rates end up on the middle classes. Important point here, by the way. The taxes end up on the middle classes, the doctors and the dentists who can't leave, the people that have fixed jobs that go to offices. You end up paying it. The middle classes, the upper middle classes first, then the middle, and then the lower middle, and then the upper working, and you know, you're all going to get soaked by it because debasement's going to drag you all up. And Labour loves taxes, and they actually love communism. Miliband is a Bolshevik communist, and he actually thinks he wants to be the overlord over you and to control all resources, and that you should be a ward of state on UBI. And the Eurozone's bringing out the European digital coin, CBDC, on October the 2025, this year. Okay, so I wonder if we have a little crisis between now and then. Who knows? It's not looking very good. All right, let's have a look. What did I say here? My framing is this is a debt-based collapse. That in 2020, the August call that we made, that was the end of the 40-year bull market in bonds, has far more long other knock-on effects as a call. It's probably the most significant event on account that it's going to be the right sizing of America, and I think by association the West, that means the UK, Europe, and the Commonwealth nations as well. Just means America's bottomless overdraft credit card has been pulled. We're seeing this politically. Everything that you're seeing that's current narrative and Twitter wars with doggy Elon and Trump that brings everybody into the more superficial realm is actually about right sizing. This is the downsizing of the American civil service. I see the military industrial complex at 1/10 of its size when this is entirely done. So that means an immense amount. So when I say 1/10, there'll be many cycles of cuts and reductions, and can't maintain, and scrapped and cuts and reductions. And there'll be it's still going to be a big country. It's not going to disappear. It's not, and I love my American people, but it is not going to have the influence it used to have. And buying of gold is de-dollarization. It's the worst thing for the dollar, is the buying of gold. The only thing, when China buys gold, they are throwing dollars into the fire and taking the metal. When Russia buys gold, they are throwing dollars. It's the worst for the dollar. Yes, it's also other currencies that are being dunked for it, but the biggest currency, the most proliferated currency, it's the dollar. The king of fiats is the dollar. The gold bull market is the canary in the mine for the debt-based fiat system. Debt and fiat seesaw down, left foot, right foot, walking down the hill, taking turns to get devalued in an absolute firestorm. That is the key of cutting and reduction, including the new defense minister even said people that are non-core are going to be let go and all of this. So actually what's happened is this is the first government. The oil tanker is almost on the lighthouse. It's 200 meters away. And the first time the captain is saying we really should try turn this oil tanker around. It's too little and it's too late. My friend, too late. It's too late. And actually the cuts will accelerate the collapse. That's it, guys. That's it. So Gaza lives on. He's going to become a stooge for the Labour government. I don't see him having Tories on there or anyone else, UK reforms. But who knows? He might have them, he might not. He wants you to decide for him. He's being a Democrat. But don't buy into his doom loop. You can lift yourself up. You need to stop paying the amount of tax you do. You need to live within your means, because the tax is a negative compound against you. The negative cash flow is a negative compound against you. And you need to stop buying consumables and buy investables, real assets, and accumulate. That's it. There's your 3 secrets. Tax, live within your means, investables. And just keep time and compounding on your side. And actually, we're in the accelerate phase. So you could actually get the fast track by doing that. Listen, it's a cacocracy, and lots of people cheat and get fast tracked. You can focus on that, like Gaza wants you to do, the injustice in the system. It doesn't help you. You're not going to stop corruption. You're not going to stop a government politician and stooge. You're not going to stop Rishi Sunak getting, having a pharmaceutical company that made money off this. You're not going to stop any of that. You can rage and outrage and scream and yell and punch your punch bag. Better just go have a gym workout and break the weight, or cycle, keep fit. But you can't change that. But if you follow these 3 or 4 rules, you get to win anyway without being a cheat. That's it. And you've got to do it. It's not an option. It's literally the polarization of humanity. If you're not doing the 3 steps and you're not actively working on it consistently, you will be poor and you'll be angry and you will be bitter. And you will see others that have and did and started and left you behind, and you'll hate on them. And you'll want to drag them back in the bucket. But they'll have resources, they'll have options, they'll have homes in different countries, they'll have residencies in different countries, they'll pay less tax, and they'll quietly stop being in your circle but be living a far better life while you struggle on and you get the UBI, serfdom, totalitarianism, and the absolute dominance of a vicious government cartel in the Western world that is going to do the Bolshevik revolution for the West and Commonwealth nations. How bad did you want to experience that? I'd suggest having optionality. I'd suggest actively pursuing the 3 steps. And the best day to start, if you haven't started today, is to start now. We specialize in that. Wealth building, there's some accelerators like the HVF method and taking great trades that help you fast track your investment stacking that are fun, enjoyable to learn, and you can exploit the opportunities of a massive collapse because some things have to go up in that environment and some things have to go down, and they will move fast. And HVF method is here to help you build wealth, preserve capital, and buy you freedoms in what is a draconian dark times that Gaza is leveraging off and saying it's time to become rent-a-crowd and sub to his channel to and buy his book. Hey, we all got something we're trying to sell, I suppose, in a way, but I don't care if you don't buy from me at all. Just take the 3 secrets for free and go and implement and just have a better life. That's awesome. I'm happy. If you hit like now, that's awesome too, but you don't even have to hit the like button. Hit the down like because I'm being mean to your friend. But go and do it. I'm happy. Okay, till next time, catch you later. Bye for now, guys.
Tired of profit wipeouts and blown accounts from following trade signal groups and other YouTube channels? Looking for a better way to trade, reduce your stress, and minimize your risk? Become a skilled technical analyst and see the charts and markets in a new light using the successfully proven HVF method by Francis Hunt, while being surrounded and supported by a principled, structured, and experienced community. Enjoy a constructive learning environment while practically trading markets, supported by a bespoke platform run through browser and app, specifically designed to teach and engage you whilst learning and growing as the markets move. This is not a Telegram or Slack signal group. All trade ideas are based on a proprietary technical analysis process honed over decades, which is the HVF method, leading to trade ideas with fast-moving breakouts and tight stops, exact entries and exits, nuanced interim considerations, and ultimately, strong rewards. Submissions are graded and scored by Francis for potential high-quality setups, and we provide bespoke tools to help get the job done properly and with precision. Over time and with focused effort, you'll begin to look at charts and price action just like Francis. Community updates every day by Francis and our 3 webinars a week provide a 360-degree approach, which are presented by our experienced team of trade leaders to spot potential trades. We're a community of self-actualized individuals, spanning the globe and active 24/7, 365. The premium community provides a warm, supportive, and cooperative place for people willing to listen, participate, contribute, and to learn. We've changed thousands of traders' lives. Transform your approach to trading now. Transform your life. Book an introductory call with us on the link below.